Hello, everyone. I am so excited today to introduce you to SonJoria from Our Families Doing Yoga. I'm so excited to have you today, SonJoria, especially because we've been in this business for over a decade. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is multiculturalism, and more specifically, making sure that all of our children are being seen and heard within the yoga classes. Even more specifically, Black children. So I'd love to talk to you. I know your business started this way. And so let's get started with just telling us a little bit about your background, your passion, your work. How did you come to spark this idea of our families doing yoga?
So, trying to make a long story short, so I've worked with kids for since ever since I can remember. My second job, I was 15 and I was a summer camp counselor. And so I've worked with kids, I've had a passion, I've always wanted to be a mom. And so kids have always been like a passion for me. I currently work as an educator and I've done this for years. So I worked in the classroom with children of different abilities for
Mhm.
a long time. And so I did that for about 15 years. And then I
Yeah.
moved into a parent educator position, which is now what I do. I go into the homes and I talk to families about development. I do screenings for children and I bring activities and help parents engage with their children. So that's what I do now. When I do it in the same district that I actually started in education, and when I was in education, the the district that I worked in locally is a very affluent, predominantly white school district. My child also attended preschool in the district. That is important because I'll share later on. So
Yeah.
I love this school district. I've worked there for, as I mentioned, close to 20 years at this point.
Mm.
Um, when I was pregnant with my second child, I started to experience what was perinatal depression, and
Mm.
it carried into maybe her almost her second year of life. When
Mm.
I realized, okay, something really isn't right. I need to do something. And so I began practicing yoga. And as I was practicing yoga, I started with the meditation piece of it. It wasn't a lot
Mm.
of asana, it was just a lot of meditation. And my kids, they wanted to get involved. They would see me practicing, they would imitate me. And so, as an educator, I was looking for ways to get them involved. Now, going back to my son attended school where I worked at, around the age of 3 or 4, I
Mm.
recognized that him going to school in a district that he didn't see a lot of black kids or kids that look
Mm.
like him in general, or people, like I was like one of the few educators in the school as well. He started to like form opinions about black people that didn't feel comfortable for me. And
Mm.
so at that, and it was due to his experiences, right? He had a lot of family experiences, but for some reason we seem to divide like our family experiences are different from other experiences. So they're unique and we can get certain things, but if we don't have those other experiences to add into to influence and then who knows. So I had made it in my mind that I was no longer going to drive out of my way, out of my community to attend events that I felt were really cool events and really special, but they didn't have black people attending them, right? And
Right.
so I wanted my child to know that there were things in his community that we could attend, and he I wanted him to be immersed in a community where he saw people that looked like him in a positive way. And
Yeah.
so when we started looking for ways to practice yoga, we looked for videos and we looked for books, and we didn't find many that looked like us. I will say, so this is so funny because I this would be my first time sharing this with you because this is our first time meeting. But when we looked online for like different types of ways to help expose them, we did find the yoga stories. I think it was the yoga cards that we
Yep.
used. Yeah,
Yep.
and like we did like a spinner game. Like we did find those, and thankfully there were brown characters. So thank you for that. But that
Thank
was
you.
like there wasn't many. There was
Right.
not many books. There weren't many videos. I would find like adult videos and trim them down to 5 minutes, and we do the videos together. And it wasn't
Mm,
many black adult videos either, right? So
right.
I told
Right.
my son we'll write our own.
Mhm.
My son at the time was 5, and my daughter at the time was probably 2. She was about 2 at that time. And so she's just living her best life. And he is just like wondering, like he was really interested. He got really excited. So we made it happen. And that's how it all started. It started with a need that our family had. And as it progressed, we recognized that this was something that other families were looking for as well. It just so happened that the book was ready to be self-published about a year before. Yes, and I didn't even have mine near me. So
This is
thank you for
beautiful.
having
Our family's doing yoga. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Thank you. It just so happened that it was ready to be published right before the pandemic, but finances, we weren't able to publish it. And
Yeah.
so it took another year. And I'm so happy that it took another year because the cover, if I'll have let me grab
Yes. Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I apologize. I should have
No,
had.
it's beautiful. And I love your writing too. It's all in rhyme. It's
Yes,
gorgeous.
yes. Pre
Gorgeous.
early childhood educator and mom
Yes.
who has to read
Right?
books all the time,
Right.
right?
Yeah. You and me
So
both. Yeah,
with
totally.
the cover, this is like a representation of our family.
Yeah.
And this child wasn't born when the book was done. And
Oh my
so we
gosh.
kind of weaved her into the book. And so it was
Oh
great
my
because
gosh.
now, like when we read it at home, my kids, they identify with the character. That's me. That's me. She would not have been on the cover had, timing worked the way
Oh
I
my
thought
gosh.
that it should work.
Oh my
So
goodness. I
that's
love
how
that.
the business started. That's how the need started. Currently, what we do is I don't teach regular yoga classes. I think I mentioned that to you. I don't
Mm.
have a space where I regularly teach. I do a lot of events, and I do teach a donation-based class monthly. And I'm getting back into a virtual class, but I'm not the yoga teacher that goes into the schools and teaches back to back classes. My life is not set up that way. And I feel like I have a different purpose. So, what
Yeah.
I like to do is I invite other yoga instructors into. So, if someone calls me and they're like, "Do you know of a Black yoga instructor?" I have a directory now that I
Mhm.
can recommend people to, and I can say, yes, check the directory. I know someone in this city, this state, this. And so now we do a tour every summer, and I partner with different Black yoga instructors around the US, hopefully one day globally, hopefully. And we do events. And my thought process is that I give them the experience of what yoga, because for kids, yoga is fun, right? So
Yeah.
we give them the experience of fun kids yoga. But once I leave this city, I read the book, we do a lot of games. It looks like a typical kids yoga class looks. But then when I'm done, this partnership still remains, and the
Mm.
yoga instructor that's there is the yoga instructor that they will go on to practice with. I don't want to leave a city and leave
Right.
a child without someone that they could regularly practice with. So I know
Oh
I
my
rambled
God.
for a while, so I hope I
No, I
answered
love that.
the question.
Yeah.
Didn't go too much into any other
Yeah.
questions.
I love that. I love so much about your experience because I love that first of all, you're an educator and you love working with children. That's such a great passion to start from. And I love that there was a need for your family and you are looking at that need. It sounds like you're starting with this book, but it sounds like you're going to be producing other things. So we can talk about that at the end. And I love too that you're saying, it's fine. We all have a purpose. We all have a place to be our own dharma, our own purpose, right? And that's yours. I love that. So, in your experience, then, looking at what are some of these tips that we can make sure that our Black children are feeling included, even if they're in a predominantly white neighborhood or not? So, how can we make sure in our yoga experiences, in our classrooms, how can we ensure that they're feeling seen and heard and included?
That's a really good question, and that is very important. Even as when I became a mom, my main goal was that my kids, and I'm probably not the best at it, I try really hard, but for them to feel seen and heard in our household.
Mm,
So extending that outside. And I think that the easiest way to do it, I mean, it's pretty simple. Sometimes we don't think about these simple things, but it's pretty simple. Like thinking about books. What type of books are you using in your classroom? Are you using books? Yes, yes.
this one, I just saw this one. It's gorgeous. It's a
It
new
is
book.
beautiful. I don't
Thank
have
you for
that
this
one, but
one.
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gorgeous. Yeah, really
It's so
beautiful.
funny because my one of my kids, I don't remember which one, just recently asked me, "Have you ever met a child whose favorite color was black or white?" And I really had to think about that. And I was like, not a child, adults, yeah, but not a child.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
love that book because it adds it to it
Mhm.
so that, yeah, maybe black could be your favorite color, maybe white could be your favorite color, but
Yeah.
there's so many beautiful colors in the rainbow, right? So it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
big. But yeah, adding books and products that are diverse. I talk about how we love spring and summer because it's festival season, right? So you go to all these different festivals and all of the different like instruments that they use, you can like purchase these things and use them for your classroom when you're doing like musical games, like maybe I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but I think it's djembe. It's the drum that so like purchasing one, purchasing
Mhm.
rain sticks, purchasing different things that are from different cultures, books. I
Mhm.
keep going back to books, but they're really important because when you're reading a book and you see people and you identify with people that look like you, or so we're in that sense we're talking through mirrors, right? But
Mhm.
also through windows. It's also important for kids that are not of color to see other kids in a positive manner that don't look like them, or to be
Right.
led by Black instructors or South Asian instructors so that they can see that, okay, there are other people who practice wellness or who ski or who, like, so
Yeah.
it's so
Right.
many different ranges. It's not just about yoga. But
Right.
so adding products, music, bringing in diverse music. We have a Spotify playlist. And one of my favorite I don't know if you call them a band. I'm not really sure, but Putumayo, are you
Oh,
familiar?
yes. Yes. Yeah.
Putumayo is my favorite. Like
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to weave in music into your yoga classes and
Mhm.
being able to reach outside of what you feel comfortable with into other areas because you never know what a child may identify with in your classroom, right?
Right.
So music,
Actually, they just put out a new CD this year that they sent me, and it has African tones to it. The whole thing. I
yeah.
can't remember if it's called Yoga Dreaming or something. I'll have to pull it up.
Really? I'm
Yeah,
gonna have
yeah.
to look
It's
into it because I don't think I've seen it.
oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure it is. I love the Caribbean ones too, like the
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Both. Yeah.
But yeah, just and thinking outside of the box, making classes accessible,
Mhm.
not just studio classes. Because when I started practicing yoga as a Black woman, I honestly stayed away from studios. I didn't feel comfortable in studios. And
Mhm.
so I remember taking my kids to a yoga studio, which is where you typically see kids yoga classes, right? And it was two of them. They were the only two Black kids in the class. And only one noticed, the oldest one, he noticed, but it just felt, and he didn't really want to go back. It wasn't that he didn't have fun. He told me he had fun, but I guess
Mhm.
he just didn't feel included. And so
Mhm.
making classes accessible, not, and when I talk about accessibility, it's not just finances, because that can be a hinder too. I have three kids and we do this tour this summer. And this year I'm hoping to get the cost down low because typically the tickets are $20. But for a mom of three,
Right.
$20 times three, that can get expensive. That doesn't help with accessibility. So
Right.
finances is important, but also location. Location is important. Um, can a family get to your yoga studio if they're on a bus? Is that accessible for them?
Right.
Can a family, will they feel comfortable coming in the neighborhood that your yoga studio is in? There's so many different ways around that, but those are just a few. Maybe hiring yoga instructors if you are a studio owner, or assistants of color, so that you can give that face as well. So there's a lot of different ways, but those are a few.
Right. Yeah, because I was thinking about that. So say there is a class, like how could we have made that experience better for your son? So
Mm.
say there's a situation where, yeah, it is all predominantly white and you've got one or two black kids. In that situation specifically, how do we help them feel included?
So in that situation specifically, I honestly feel like the studio owner was doing the best that she could.
Mm,
Like I honestly
right.
think but I think that what could have been helpful is, I'm not sure if a lot of her instructors were black. I know that the instructor that was leading the class was white, and sometimes you can't help that it's great that
Right.
she was offering that experience for kids in general, so I was thankful for that. But the other things that she could have possibly done is, if she had black instructors, have them help advertise the class, because
Yeah.
they'll reach a demographic and a population that she necessarily wouldn't have, because she wasn't a
Mm,
person of color.
right.
And having a black instructor, like just me as a black yoga teacher, when I run into people, and people's favorite thing is, what do you do? Right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when I tell them like I'm a yoga instructor, they ask more questions, because they're not really familiar with black yoga instructors. And so that I'm sometimes I'm a new influence. And then there's the questions that they possibly wouldn't ask to someone who isn't white. And so that helps build the comfort of, maybe I'll come try your class. Maybe, or so
Yeah. Right.
if you have a black instructor inviting people into the space, and they feel comfortable in the space, then they'll share,
Mm,
and it's pretty authentic, and it just kind of happens the way it happens. Now, moving ahead, this same yoga studio has a black kids yoga instructor as well now. So
right.
that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think back to your point about books.
Mhm.
So we have a couple books here, but I always felt unsure that we have one of our books in the Emily's Day in the Desert. It's with an African American family, but I always felt like, is that okay because I'm a white author making a book with characters of African American, and then we have one 1, 2, 3 African Safari where the characters from Tanzania. So I always felt a little unsure whether that was okay. Is it okay for white people to have books with black characters?
So
But I was just trying to add more to
yeah.
the yoga world.
So that's a really good question. And that is, I have to take that back to just being authentic. So if you're being genuine and you're being authentic, people will see that. You will get backlash. I'm gonna say, like, there's a lot of people who are pushing own stories, and I think it's very important to have own stories. But I don't think that that's the only type of stories that there can be. We books, or I was a reader when I was growing up, so books are a way for you to dive in and imagine things. And as authors, we get really excited about like writing, and we write about characters, and sometimes those characters don't look like us, and that's okay.
Right.
I personally don't think anything is wrong with it, but I'm not speaking for all black people or all people of color. I can only speak from my personal experience.
Yeah.
So all I can say to that is, if you're being authentic, then no need to feel like you're going to get backlash, but then you're going
Mhm.
to get people who embrace it. So
Yeah.
just take
Right.
what you can and use what
Yes.
you can and leave what you can't,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But if
Well, I've
you
been
know your
fortunate.
purpose is for
Yes.
the
Right.
better cause, then I go
Yeah.
ahead, go for it.
Right. Well, thank goodness you said that because yeah, I have a thin skin, so to speak. So I would only want my it was my drive to make sure it was authentic. I spoke to people in Tanzania, making sure that they was authentic, the animals were
Yeah.
right, all that. But in any case, they're been over 10 years old, these books. So luckily I have not had any backlash. So that goes,
That's great.
yeah.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing about making sure that people feel comfortable for all cultures, that we need to make mistakes sometimes to learn and move forward, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to make those steps. So talk to us about, so you do these events and you do these monthly classes. Do you have a story for us about maybe when a Black child felt maybe seen and heard in one of your experiences and what difference that made?
I do. I do. I have a few. One of my favorites is a story to share because it's like I had this wonderful experience and then I had a humbling experience right afterwards. So
Mhm.
I was invited to a school to do an author event with a mini yoga experience as well. And so I read my book first and then we moved into yoga. So when the students, it was also a predominantly white, really affluent private school. And so when the students came in, they were very shocked to see a Black author, and I don't know if it was shocking to see that it was a Black yoga instructor or if it was just shocking to see a Black presenter because of the demographics of the school. So I'm not
Mm.
sure. But when the child walked in, the first thing they said was, "Oh, she's Black." And it was with a smile on their face. And so we go through, I'm reading the book, and you hear like another child in the same setting. It was like maybe four pre-K classrooms, I believe. And so another child in the same classroom points out that there's a little girl, the character in the book, and she looks just like me. Her hair is like mine. So I'm feeling really good about like, okay, I am reaching like I am doing what I set out to do. And I'm going through the story and I get to this page. I have to pull it out because it's so funny. So I get to this page and I'm reading about like how the family is having a great time. And one of the kids says, and luckily we caught it on camera, but one of the kids says, and the little 10-year-old boy is smoking. So I didn't have my singing bowl with me at the time.
Oh my goodness.
But I go on to say, no, no, he's not smoking. He has a Tibetan singing bowl. And I go on to explain what it is, but I don't have mine to show, which was a very humbling experience. I now take it with me every time I go to have the visual. But I was like thinking I'm winning. I'm really winning out here. And then they go on to like pull something from an illustration that I never really caught. Like is he's definitely I mean, we're familiar with what a Tibetan singing bowl looks like. But for a
Oh
child
my
who
gosh.
wasn't, he looked like he was smoking. So yeah, that's one of
Oh
my funnest stories.
my goodness. Oh my gosh. There's so much to unpack there. How did you respond? You must have just been like,
No, I just went
yeah,
on to I laughed first. So we actually
yeah,
got it on video. I did a whole reel on it. But
yeah.
I laughed at first and then I went on to say what it was and
Mhm.
that next time I come back and visit I'll bring it to you.
Oh
But
my gosh, I love that.
it was fun. And his mom, they did a pre-purchase. So his mom purchased the book ahead of time. And I think I shared with the teacher. I didn't reach out to mom, but I shared with the teacher, make sure you share this funny joke and
Yeah.
let parents explain to the kids what's actually happening in the book.
It just goes to show there's no filter with children. They tell you
No filter.
exactly what they're thinking. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's a great story. So thinking about what advice would you have for non-Black people who really do want to make an effort? Because I want to say, you tell me, I want to say most people have a good heart and have good intentions, and there also was a certain level of like afraid to say or do the wrong thing. Sort of, what advice do you have for folks who are wanting to include Black kids but just unsure?
So I would say I'm gonna go back to what we talked about earlier of just being authentic because people, we can pretty much catch if someone's being genuine, right? But kids are
Mhm.
really, really good at that. And I mean, as an educator in the classroom, I noticed
Mhm.
that kids will definitely piggyback on like, okay, well, I don't think she likes me. And they'll
Mhm.
feel that, you're right. Or they'll know that if someone's being real. So being authentic, but also immersing yourselves in communities that are not populated by people that just look like you. So, like intentionally going out to seek diverse communities. And when I say diverse, I mean really inclusive, like not just Black people, but people,
Mhm.
there's so many different backgrounds, ethnicities, like immersing yourself in communities where you can actually have genuine conversation and you learn to build a comfort. Because here's the thing, Black people have learned to be comfortable in uncomfortable spaces. We kind of grew up that way. Like we don't know any other way a lot of the times. We're comfortable
Mhm.
in uncomfortable spaces. So you have to step outside of the box and place yourself in communities that maybe feel a little uncomfortable for you, but it will build, the comfort will build over time. And then when you're introducing these types of things into your classrooms, and I mean, if you make a mistake, you make a mistake, right? Like
Yeah,
we make
right.
mistakes every day, and they're not always race or ethnicity bound, but they're
Mhm.
mistakes. And how do we move through when we make a mistake? It's the same thing with that. You can only apologize. We can't please everyone, right? We
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
please everyone.
Right.
But if you're being genuine and you're being authentic, and if you're placing yourself in communities to learn from people that look
Mhm.
like, that don't look like you, then I think that that's more important and you'll gain more than you would in any classroom or workshop. But if you are looking for a workshop, I do one.
Mhm.
It's called
Excellent.
When Black Kids Do Yoga. And I talk about being inclusive of not just Black kids, but kids in general. And we talk about like different um, resources and different things that you can use in your classroom and ways that you can be more inclusive. And if you want to ask the hard questions, we can have those hard conversations. And sometimes people walk away from the workshop feeling a little heavy, but they feel
Mhm.
enlightened. They've learned a lot. The feedback is always positive, but sometimes those conversations can be heavy. So if you need a space to have those conversations and not feel so
Mhm.
judged, then there are plenty of ways to engage in workshops, classes, and things like that.
Mhm.
What I can offer you is don't go in someone's DM on like social media and ask those questions because that's just really uncomfortable.
Yes, right. Yeah. Sounds like from your experience. And what I'm hearing from you is it really is when we talk about yoga, right? Your thoughts, words, and your actions. So it's really about our mindset. First of all, just checking in. What are our thoughts going in our minds? What are we including? How can we be better? Right. And then in the words that we say, like you talked about before about your family. So making sure no matter what's happening outside your home, but what's happening in your home. I was very fortunate to grow up in a family where everybody was included. That's just the way I grew up. It
Yeah.
didn't matter the color of your skin or your gender affiliation, your economic. That's the family I grew up in. I was very, very fortunate. So it wasn't until my adult life where I realized that there were some biases or racism or things like this that I had to then sort of first of all, like I can't believe sort of the initial shock. I can't believe people think about each other that way. But
Yeah.
also, I'm just always be looking at the layer, and I'm not perfect, but be looking underneath. Is there other unconscious biases that I might have, or how do I what else can I do? How else can I include my daughter in the world that we live in now, and include her in these difficult conversations that we're having right here in our own town, right? And so
Yeah.
I think what you say, it has to start with us, right?
Mhm.
And our mindset and our thoughts and our beliefs. And then also, how do we start with our family, right? And our communities. I love that.
You
Oh,
paraphrased it perfectly. I love it.
mhm.
Yes.
Oh, it's such a joy to talk to you. So what's next for you? What's on the horizon? I'm looking at the trophies behind there. So it looks like you're up to something back there. And tell us what's going on next.
So what, so I kind of stumbled on, I shared a little bit about how our families doing yoga, doing business as Black kids do yoga, how we came about. And so it started as a book that our family needed. But then we also added, we have a YouTube page. So we also have like videos that my kids actually, we're not YouTubers. I can't call us YouTubers,
Yeah.
but there was a presence that lacked on social media and YouTube. And we tried to fill the gap a little bit. So we started a YouTube channel. We wrote the book. We now have yoga cards as well. So we have yoga pose cards,
Oh, I
and
love
they're
it.
actually wonderful because they're from the characters in the book.
Yep.
So it's a
Love
great
it.
pair with the book. And then we have yoga activity cards. These are my favorite because I'm a mom and I'm an educator. So we're able to take what we need. I'll share this story if I have time. There
Yeah.
was a time where I'm in my home and it's a rainy day, and there's been like multiple rainy days, and my kids are going chaotic, and I'm just like, well, we can't get outside. And then it hit me, hey, you're the lady who created these products for. So I pull out our
Right.
activity cards, and our activity cards are broken down into their concentration games, there are self-regulation games, there are meditations, there so there's the games, the meditations, journaling prompts, and breathing prompts. And so there's 5 different categories, and each category has like 3 activities that you can do. And so it hit me like, pull out the activity cards. And so I pulled them out, and I was like, what? And I didn't say, let's do some yoga. I said,
Right.
what would you guys like to play today? And so they chose their activity, and it was just like, that's it. So that's why I created them, because families are always looking for ways to get their kids involved in yoga. And a lot of times I hear them
Yes.
say, well, they don't like yoga. Well, half the time they don't even know they're doing yoga. Like if you make
Right.
it fun, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, they're gonna
Exactly.
push back. So we have the yoga cards, we have the activity cards, we have the book. We're hoping to add more products. But one of my favorite things is that we do. Last year was our first tour, and you've done a podcast interview with Shawandra from Brown Skin Yoga.
Yes.
Last summer or this past summer was my first time meeting her in Memphis.
Oh
She
my
was
goodness.
a partner of our Black Kids Do Yoga tour. And so we partner
Oh
with
my gosh.
3 different cities, 4 if you include St. Louis, and we partner with Black yoga instructors from each city. And so I got to meet Shawandra, and I love that we get to tour and we get to meet other Black yoga instructors who are doing work and feel very passionate about the same type of work that I am doing. And we are able to create these beautiful experiences for a room full of kids that possibly never would have had this experience. And then I'm able to say, okay, well, here's your yoga instructor from here on. And we are actually friends now. So we developed a
Oh,
relationship, and she's a good friend of mine. But
oh,
so we have our 2024 tour coming up, and we'll be touring 4 different cities, and it's going to be exciting to see
that's
like what it
amazing.
looks like versus what it looked like last year. But that's pretty much what we're doing now.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. And we find you online by your Instagram page, right?
As you can find me online, you can look us up. You can find us anywhere if you look up Our Families Doing Yoga. So you should be able to find our website. You should be able to find us, our social media and everything. But our handle on social media tends to be Black Kids Do Yoga. So if you type in Black Kids Do Yoga, we pop up as well. So I'm
Awesome.
pretty much on all platforms, not as active on all of them, but I'm there.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us. And I hope there's some takeaways that our community can make sure that they can feel more comfortable. And I think what you've done is given us permission to move forward, to be authentic, to live with it's okay. We can do this. We can do this
We can do
together.
this, and we can
Yes.
make mistakes, and we can go. But thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. Like I said, it's kind of like full circle, like when we started our experience and we
Yes.
found your cards, and now here
Yes.
we are.
Yeah. Love it. So love it. Thank you so much, my dear. See
Thank
you
you for
soon.
having me.
Cheers.
Have a good week.